My name is Amanda Winchester, and I was asked to do this presentation on marketing new cuts of meat, and I asked for a co-host because Tyler really knows more about direct marketing and about specific things in this area. So I kind of am using my resources. So this is Tyler McCann. He is with Wyoming Cowboy Cuts, and he does all of his meat direct marketing.
Yep.
So. All right, so, during COVID, food purchasing changed a lot, the way people purchased food. It showed us that we can always depend on grocery stores to get our meat. During COVID, we all went to the grocery store and noticed how empty the shelves were from canned products to meat products. It was kind of eye-opening. It's when direct-to-consumers really took off during that point. And online shopping and home delivery food groceries took off. And I still see so many people doing the online home delivery groceries. I mean, I don't think that that's gonna go away for a long time. According to the Median Marketing Consumer Survey, 33% of meat consumers have purchased meat or chicken online for the first time since the pandemic began. That was an increase from 20% in April of 2020. I couldn't find current statistics. There's not a lot out there. They all focused mostly on during the pandemic. While grocery purchases moved to a starting role, consumers also changed how they shopped for them. Foot traffic plummeted as the public no longer felt safe browsing shelves and lingering in aisles. In response, online grocery sales surged to an astonishing 300% early in the pandemic. They feel that there will undoubtedly be a lasting shift in online ordering as current estimates show e-commerce is poised to expand to 21% in the grocery sales of 2025, right? So online shopping has changed dramatically. And you started, right?
Chance, do you want me to over here for that?
Yeah, if you're gonna be talking.
I don't mind that. Yeah, that's one thing that we've seen. I mean, that was, so just quick background on us. We have, we run about 500 pairs and 100 replacement heifers. So we're kind of a medium-sized, average-sized ranch in Wyoming. We noticed that there was always these lower-end cattle. We had one that was born in a storm, lost his ears, tail, and nose. So we finished him as a beef. Everybody that came and ate the beef said, "What's your secret?" There's no secret. We went to co-op, got a ton of feed. When the feed was gone, we butchered the steer. Thought maybe there's something to this. So every year since then, we've doubled in size. This will probably be the first year that we don't double in size. But like all of these things, 2019, we started Wyoming Cowboy Cuts LLC to kind of protect some of our other businesses. And we had planned on doing 20 head. By the end of February, we had 3 or 4 beef in freezers and 3 or 4 beef hanging, and we were gonna have to roll pennies to get them out of hock. And the first day that Smith's was out of meat, every business card, brochure, website, email, anything I'd ever sent out, they all called on the same day. And we sold 3 whole beef in 72 hours in individual packages. And we had all the money and none of the beef. And it's led to all of these things now. We are, just in the last several weeks, we've been approached several times about, we're buying Butcher Box right now, but we would like to buy something locally. So we're starting a whole nother subscription side to our website right now to talk about exactly that the online purchasing and home delivery has just blown up.
So some of the things Tyler's just talked about was, as you're selling directly to the consumers or online shopping, that you want to get out there and talk about your story. Why is it important to tell your story, Tyler?
It really, it creates a solid connection between you and customers, because this funny thing happens when you're visiting. I'm not a big fan of farmers markets just because I live so far from everything, but you do need to go to those kind of things where you can have one-on-one contact with consumers, because it cements that relationship so that you can get these kind of online sales and stuff. Everybody, when they stand across the table from you and they hear your story, they're rooting for you and they really have that connection to you, but that doesn't necessarily translate to sales. That gets you in the door, telling your story. My daughters are 6th generation in Fremont County. We want them to have the ability to continue ranching if they so choose. But as soon as you hear the end of that story, or you read or you see all the beautiful pictures on the website and all of these things, it doesn't necessarily translate to sales. Because the first thing that people say, they say one of two things when you say, so what can I get you? After they've just really gotten on your team and they want you to win. You say, what can I get you? And they say one of two things, ribeye or hamburger. Because those are the things that they know. Mm-hmm. And you've just now spent all this time getting connected to them, and they don't want to look stupid in front of you. Right. So they go with what they know. And unfortunately, if the entire thing was made out of ribeye and ground beef, it would be super easy.
Right.
But it's the getting the tongue and the heart and the liver and all of these other things that we're going to talk about, it's getting that sold. So telling your story gets you in the door.
I just came back from Young Farmers and Ranchers conference in Florida, and I was visiting with a farmer, I believe he's from Virginia, and he was telling me, he was marketing himself, even though I was not going to be his consumer. He was telling me his story, his connection, his connection to his land, his connection to his product and things, and it really drew me in to at least look at his website. You know, I mean, you have to have that connection, and I know that Tyler really does well on his Facebook page. You post pictures of your family and not so much of your meat, right? I mean, You make that connection with him, and you make that bond, and you're right, they don't always then purchase things right away, but they have that connection and they remember that connection. So this is Tyler's Wyoming Cowboy Cuts, and this is the college's Rustler Cattle Company. So let me tell you a little bit about the Rustler Cattle Company. So it's the meat science program at the college, and it is named Rustler Cattle Company. We wanted to be able to connect with the community and connect with the college. So we starting in the fall, will process animals for the community as a business, but yeah, it uses an educational tool. So the product will be, my students will be able to, work on everything, but the producers or the customers know that it's an educational tool too. So it's a great bond that we get to do. It's not made to take away from the local packing houses. It's made to, add another service to the community. And it's important. I mean, I think there's overflow, right? That you end up going to Cody a lot and things with your product just because of trying to get availability and things, so.
Yeah, we, throughout most of COVID and up until just the last 6 months, we would take about 4 to 6 a month up to Cody. We've had a few processed here at Genuine Meats. Some of the value-added products have become a very big thing for us, and so jerky, snack sticks, those kind of grab-and-go items to move out of just being custom whole, half, and quarters. When you start looking into retail, cold storage is really expensive and really frustrating and really it's a lot of labor. And so having some shelf-stable products like jerky and snack sticks that we can start marketing gas stations. We've even talked about getting them here at the cafeteria and the coffee shop. Some of those kind of things have become really important, so we're still trying a few other processors to see if there isn't that one sweet spot where we can do really good job on our custom holes and halves and keep those customers happy. We have customers that are regulars every year now, and so keeping them really happy is a big thing. But then trying to find some other areas for really good recipes, that's a whole new animal when you get into the snack sticks and the jerkies. There is a lot to it, and so we're still kind of shopping for that perfect place, but yes, we do use, our product never leaves Wyoming at this point.
Which is awesome. I mean, that's the whole purpose of making sure that we're helping the producers by having more processing plants. So again, we're talking about making connections to the consumers, to find repeat customers, buying through connecting with the customer, connect through a recipe like you just talked about, through your snack sticks even. But the producer that I was talking to from Virginia, he was talking about, he has a newsletter where he puts out recipes and things for his products and things, and he was selling different types of milk and his beef and all these things, and so he had that newsletter to send out. I mean, as you well know, it's a lot more work to do direct sales, as far as like the marketing and everything, but you know, finding a way to connect on a monthly basis. I think you do that really well with your Facebook, to connect to your customers and to kind of show them things. You want to talk a little bit about some things that maybe you do? That's
kind of our next level.
Yeah.
Up until now, it has been my wife and I, and that's it. So balancing everything is pretty difficult, and we were fortunate that we got catapulted from doing 4 to 10 a year to now 60 to 80 a year. But we've now been able to hire someone part-time that is handling it. We're developing a newsletter. We're the #1 selling product on Eat Wyoming.
So you want to talk about Eat Wyoming? I'm
sure
that they know, but you can talk a little bit about it.
It's been a great service for us. So we're trying to tie all of these things together as far as developing a newsletter. I didn't want to do it where it was half-hearted and, you know, one time it was 6 weeks and the next time it was 8. I want it to be a really solid program. We now have a person in place to handle that. So we will start shipping out recipes with things. That's one of the things that we'll talk about later, is that some of those things are intimidating for consumers. That's why we don't sell brisket retail. There's a lot of stigma around that, and so having that to where you can get a really simple recipe that everybody can do, it makes them have a win, and they feel like they've gotten 1, a new skill, 2, something their family likes, 3, they're using something that you sent them that maybe they didn't know about before. So those are all really good things that help you cement that relationship with your customer. But Eat Wyoming has been a fantastic program for us. It's statewide distribution. Like I said, we're the #1 selling product, because you know, beef is a big business, and so it was. We noticed it in our sales almost overnight. We started having sales in Gillette. We have 3 or 4 new customers in Rock Springs that are all whole and half customers now, because they bought a box on Eat Wyoming. And that is my most profitable sale, is a whole or a half beef, because it's the least amount of labor for me, and it's the most amount of profit margin, and it's the cheapest for the consumer. So having those boxes available, and that was something that came up through COVID. People had the money, we had the cattle, but they couldn't get a freezer big enough. They had the freezer that they had above their refrigerator, and that's where we had to make something that would fit in a half or a third of that space. And that brought on our retail boxes, and we literally opened someone's freezer and filled it with, you know, okay, you can only do 6 or 8 of these, and that's a third of your freezer. So having that, the retail side of it is one of my least favorites because it is the most labor intensive. But it opens up that door, just like the recipes, just like the newsletter. It gets you to where they're gonna take that next step.
So some of those things that we've been talking about is marketing. I sat in on a workshop in Florida about marketing, about social media, about YouTube, TikTok, Reels, Facebook Live, and Instagram. Does any of you guys use what do you use?
I do all of it.
All of it?
Yeah, I do a lot of marketing.
Do you think it's a good tool?
Oh yeah, I'm the marketing director for Bighorn Basin, so
Okay.
I do a lot of marketing in
Oh,
a
very
lot of
cool.
different ways. It really does help.
Yeah.
It really does. You can get out there.
Right, and a lot of times it's free.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean-
it's all free, yeah.
I mean, sometimes Facebook gets a little bit where they won't let you see some of the business side.
You just learn how to go around.
Right? Right. Yeah, they were talking about, the next generation, really, I mean, this is their livelihood. They live and breathe on their phones, on their social media. And they were talking about TikTok, and I've been on TikTok, I haven't used it as a great tool, but they were talking about using it as a resource to find things, like you go on there to find restaurants, you go on there to find, it is, our college has banned it because of the security issues, but it is such an important marketing tool within the younger generation. I mean, I really feel that, as we're marketing things, we need to try to teach the younger generation. I mean, those of us that are older and see the value of, buying locally, we need to market that to the younger generation. We need to make the connection to them so that, we're not just stopping at the 50, 60, 70-year-olds buying the meats. We need to be marketing to the younger crowd and making them find that connection.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, what is it, Jeffree Star.
Oh yeah.
I think he's great. I mean, he's so bizarre, but my whole thing for being a big fan of Jeffree Star is that any young person that's encouraging young people to eat whole meats is a good thing. I don't
Right.
care if it's yak or buffalo or beef or whatever. I really agree with that part. I mean, and I really want to ride in his Rolls Royce.
Right.
How cool is that? To
Right.
go down a dirt road in a Rolls Royce. So, I'm not a TikToker. We've looked into it a little bit. Facebook, we have kind of a moderate following on Instagram, but it builds so quickly. Every reel is getting more and more views every day. And it just takes that one person to mention you. We are gonna be, I don't know if I'm supposed to don't tell anybody. We got filmed for an episode of a new show called Ranch America.
Cool.
It'll be on the Outdoor Channel this spring. They just finished editing our episode, actually. And that was a really cool connection through High Mountain Seasoning, was a sponsor of the show. Hans and his wife are customers. They asked if they knew anybody that was doing what we're doing. So we went right to the front of the line. So it's always just having that one connection can really propel a lot of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I fought social media as long as possible, and now I'm probably on it way too much, but it really does. It really helps build your business and keep that connection.
Right. I've seen several of your reels just out feeding, your cows when it's cold, and you're like, keeps going, I mean, it makes that connection. You really make that connection with your customers, with the community. And then even if they're not purchasing things from you right now, they remember you and they see your product and they're like, oh yeah, I want to try that, So.
One of the ones that I'm really impressed with is a lot of the dairy farmers have gotten very, very vocal on socials. And New York Farm Girls, they're a great one to follow. They're 20-somethings that are out milking twice a day, and they show the cows come in willingly.
Right.
You know, nobody's out there beating them to come in, and so things like that. I'm cautious personally. I don't show any pictures branding. I try not to do a lot of cutesy cow pictures and then like the next day show a piece of meat. I try and kind of be strategic that way, but you look at somebody like Rancher Ryan, who's gonna come to the beef roundup. He was just asked to be the social media director for RFD for the week. He did a takeover. Those are big things now. One of the marketing deals that we're with, that's a nationwide shipping thing, Range Market, they have every producer do a takeover once a week and just fill in what you did the last several days. So those are all really cool things, and these bigger companies are really showing a lot of everyday life on the farm or ranch.
Yeah, I think it's really important as an industry that we need to be more vocal like that. I mean, there's so much of the negativity out there that we need to be standing up and supporting ourselves in a positive way. You know, we don't have to come out yelling and screaming, but we need to educate. You know, educate can be social media, talking about what you do on your farm and ranch, or, you know, what you do with your produce, or whatever you're doing. You need to just be vocal about it. You're gonna have the negativity, you're gonna have the haters, but if you educate one person where their food comes from, if you educate somebody else that shares with somebody else that shares with somebody else, you've made a difference. So, you know, marketing can make a huge difference, and I really like that, you know, the dairy girls are doing their thing. I've watched several of them. It's pretty cool. I mean, I think that's, you know, again, their age is really into this, and they're using their resources. So we need to, as an industry, try to get into those resources also. So
You got me thinking about, it's like the New York girls aren't really only stirring up their own customers, but as soon as you watch and love those, then you see, well, where can I find that here?
Right.
You know, and so
Yeah.
every time somebody watches yours, wherever they are, they're gonna find their local rancher.
Right.
And you know, Ranch America and all the people that are doing their big things in the other states, they're gonna find you.
Right.
And so the more you splash, the more you get wet, you know, the more everybody splashes, the more
It helps the
follows.
industry. It really
Yeah.
does. I mean, again, we need to educate as an industry. We
So it
need
becomes
to-
a movement.
Right.
Instead of just a couple people doing stuff more often.
Right, and sitting back and letting the negativity hit.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking last night at Bunk's Barbecue, where, you know, James is introducing where he got all of the different things on the buffet
Right.
table, like everything there.
Right.
And so, and all of us were like, whoa, that's really cool. And I think about all the times I have a local meal. I had, you know, Caitlin over, and I could tell them where everything on the table came from.
Right?
Yeah.
And if that could be a movement, eat local, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's not a move, it's not just a Riverton movement, it's a worldwide
Yeah.
movement, and it, you know, rolls
Right.
into every different.
Yeah, I think
smaller
it's
group.
really important. I try to teach my students to, there's a high school, well, I think it's more than middle school, and it's called Bighorn School, but it's not Bighorn County, up by Sheridan. They actually, everything that goes on their kids' plates is local.
That's
From their meat to the produce to everything. They have given up the federal stipend, and they have tried to make it so that the kids eat healthy. They said that their students actually go home, don't eat 5 bowls of cereal when they get home. They don't go home and eat, and they stay focused all day, and they're not hungry before their sports and things, that they're eating real food instead of the processed and the fake food. And so I try to, in my food and our well-being class, really show the students that, I mean, besides a whole lot of other things, but I really try to show them the importance of knowing where your food comes from and the benefits of it. And so, you know, all of this that we're talking about, again, is that teaching people to know where their food comes from, you know, marketing it, making that connection, I think is really key. And always, and I agree, it needs to be not just here, it needs to be statewide. I think there's other programs out there in the state that are trying to do that, but again, as an industry, we need to be more vocal and get that information in front of consumers. I think that's.
And the influencers sway
Right.
everybody's future, and so if it's a nationwide movement, then it helps us.
Right, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of those that are happening nationwide, that are, it's just, we're always behind a little bit on everything, on technology and everything. And so I think that it'll really hit Wyoming. I mean, it's starting, it's growing, it's building. I just think we need to
Because
educate
the
more.
youth are being
Yeah.
influenced on it, they just wouldn't know where to look around
Right.
to find what they just heard about.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think too, the one thing I noticed with it, like just side note, but this is the first time ranchers have the platform to fight back.
Right?
Because PETA for years spent millions of dollars
Yep.
running us in the mud, saying all this stuff that was not even relatively true.
Right.
Now, when they post that this little lamb got butchered while getting sheared, well, you can post a video and say, let's show you how we do this.
Right.
And show the reality.
We have
And
to
if
get our nose
10
out
of
of there.
us do a video from all different parts of the country versus their one, people, you can only lie to people's souls.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right, we have to be the stronger voice. Even though that negativity's out there, we still have to learn and grow and educate as we go. I think that's key. And I really think the younger generation is, I think they're the ones that we need to get on the bandwagon to help educate people, because they are so much into this, that they can influence more than I can just standing here talking to you guys. I mean, we need to get all age groups involved, but we really need to be a louder voice, so.
Well, I think we have such an opportunity with these Gen Z, because these are the kids that have a 16-step skincare with sunscreen and the
Right.
whole 9 yards.
Right.
So if they care about themselves that much, they're gonna care about what they're eating.
Right,
Yeah. One of the big ones that I follow, and I've talked with them back and forth a little bit, is the Meat Mafia podcast.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
They're two young guys from Austin area, I want to say, and they were college athletes, and they noticed that their health was starting to decline. They were already seeing some signs of aging, and they went to a full carnivore diet, and they now, they've reversed some of those symptoms. They have experts from all over the world that come on their podcast. And they're very much into the regenerative agriculture side, which I think there's a place for it, but I've told them that they need to kind of keep it broad spectrum, because that's getting to be a little bit of an issue. But they do a great job of confronting that carnivore diet is actually very healthy for you. And so seeing that they're 20-somethings that are full-fledged. I mean, this is all they do now. They do not have any other, this is not a side gig. They are full-time podcasting, social media, and making an income off of just promoting eating the diet that made them healthy.
Right.
It's a great, it's fun, it's a fun listen too.
Well, speaking of, I forgot to mention that I started a podcast within the college. Tyler actually was one of my interviewees. My purpose is, it's the Rustler Cattle Company podcast, and I think they're finally getting it published. But the purpose of it was to educate people about the industry and bring together producers, processors, students, everything together to educate the public about, the meat industry and things, and try to make that connection from, I think it's important, again, we talked about connection from the producer to the end product to, the processor. I think every step of that needs to, we need to be a voice to make that connection. I think even the processors need to make a connection with the community, with their customers, the producers make that connection, tell their story, and then the customers can then talk about their experience and their things. I think, so anyhow, I'm excited about my podcast. Tyler was on it. It's fun. I started out as my master's program final project, and I wanted to continue it, so I picked something that I can continue. But anyhow, so if you ever see it, you'll have to listen to it.
So I have a question.
What's that?
And it's a little bit of a devil's advocate
Okay.
question, we talked about it before, but how do we encourage people to eat local products without casting a bad light on the rest of the beef industry? How can we say, should eat Cowboy Cuts beef, but while not saying that beef is bad at Smith's?
I have a little bit of a hard time not saying, not that, I think Smith has great meat, honestly, but I have a hard time with that because of labeling. if I knew where that meat came from at Smith's, I would have no problem saying, that's a great product. I think that a lot of times, like the Walmart meat is from Brazil or Austria or somewhere that we don't know, and I would rather eat something local. I'd rather know what I'm eating. And so I guess I don't want to bash the beef industry, but I also want people to realize where their meat comes from. And I guess that goes back to labeling. We need to work on origin labels. I really do think that we need to know, again, we need to educate ourselves and educate the public of where our food comes from. Do you have?
Yeah, I think it's tricky to say, how do I say mine is so good?
Right.
And that is, you know, I don't want anybody to think it's unsafe.
No.
Obviously, there's a lot of checks and balances all along the way to keep it safe. You know, when you look at the volume that's produced, it's staggering. It's unbelievable. You think about, I listened to Colorado Craft Beef was on a podcast the other day, and he's doing one a day. And he's kind of like me. I don't think that if I did all of mine in one day, I don't think that we could keep Smith's open for 6 hours, right? And they're doing one a day, so they might make it through the whole day and maybe into the second at Smith's. So understanding our limitations, you know, this is, I think maybe that's part of it, is developing more of that idea of a craft beef. You know, Budweiser and Coors Light run 24 hours a day to keep it going to the stores. And then you have a smaller local brewery. If you're a beer fan, both have their places. So I think we need to look at other markets like that and see how they're doing it. Wine is another good one to look at. You know, you have everything from vineyards that are producing hundreds of bottles per day down to some vineyards that only produce 100 bottles in a year, and it's very coveted for the quality. So I think talking about the difference in this is, you know, ours is a pasture raised. That was one thing that we always wanted to make sure that we told about our product, was that it's never been in a feedlot. No confined animal feeding operations. That was just our personal preference. We didn't want to look out the window. Mostly we didn't want to create another chore.
Yeah.
You know,
I was
I
gonna
mean,
say, it's just work.
Yeah, it's more work to go out and do that. It's stupid simple for me to go and pack 2 buckets out, you know, and they're out in this little pasture and they kind of take care of themselves, other than the 5 minutes that I have to go feed them. So that was kind of a personal thing, but I think some of that kind of marketing will help with, we don't have to bash them, but we can build ourselves up.
Yeah. True.
So not necessarily saying their beef is bad, just providing examples on why.
Right,
beef is
yeah,
good.
yeah, promoting with the reason why to buy locally. I mean, I agree with Tyler that that's important. Like I said, I have a hard time with not saying, you know, if I knew where it came from, I could be able to promote it better. But that goes back to knowing where your food comes from and what Tyler's talking about. Explaining the history, the story, making that connection with the community, with your customers. I think that's important.
And that is, like, to your point with, you know, you've got 16-year-olds that have a skincare regimen. So there's all the way from the regenerative to people that just honestly don't care. And so if you can find your place along in there, and so environmental impact is a huge thing that we talk about. You will talk about it with almost every individual customer. And excuse me, part of that is my biggest thing that I try and advertise is that if our beef has seldom even left the county, I have a much smaller environmental impact than something that's being trucked from here to Omaha and then back to Riverton. So if environmental impact is something that's important to your customer, you can connect that way. And I think, to your point, for the bigger operations, they need to concentrate on feed efficiency. You talk to Jim Jensen, he swears he can finish something in 45 days from the time, and I don't know if they're weaned and backgrounded and then 45 days on feed. But I think developing each one of those stories is
Right.
gonna be a big thing. Personally, so out of our 60 to 80 head of beef per year, I sell 3 that are completely grass finished in Riverton, Wyoming. I'm breaking into the Jackson market, and so I'm promoting that more. Our whole idea behind promoting is the wine model. So I now have 5 different flavors of beef. I have 100% grass finished Scottish Highland. I have what we're calling the 1890, which is a Longhorn Angus cross. I have our traditional, and then I have our 100% grass fed, which is we call the Sweetwater edition. And then we're gonna do some other things along the way. And so that's kind of been my thing, is that, you know, as we break into a Jackson market, we can have a world exclusive that, you know, this restaurant in Jackson can now charge an unreasonable amount of money for this plate that has never left Wyoming. Every product in it was from Wyoming, and you now have 5 completely different flavors as a flight of beef. So that's my kind of marketing. In Riverton, Wyoming, it's very difficult to sell something that does not get some grain in it. So that was part of our idea to reach into those markets like you're talking about, that every statistic that we see is that grass-fed will be 1/3 of the entire beef market by, what is it, like 2030 or something. And I read that a couple years ago. So, but then the other side of that is that a lot of that was people's disdain for corn and CAFO operations. And so for us to take all of the pieces that we already had, we didn't purpose build this from scratch. We had to work inside of what we already had and make a new product. So we were able to market that they're never in a feedlot, but we also had to market for who we were selling them to here locally, that they do get grain, so you do get that flavor that you're used to, but you don't look out the window and see them standing up to their belly in mud right now, which that's just unfortunate. That's the way it is. If they're in a pen, they're in mud right now. So those were all the little pieces that we had to keep putting together, that these are the things that we already have, and this is where we want to be, and what is going to connect those 2 things. So
I have a question, just about your operation, because I know one of our struggles is timing, because you have open cows a certain time of year, you have open heifers, you have, your stuff's getting, you know, it's all born the same time of year, so it's gonna finish about the same time of year. So how do you manage that as you grow? Because for us, we've been able to do, we did 8 one year.
Yep.
And it was fine, but it's like, we really can't do more than that and get everything
Yep.
lined out.
If you didn't have 6 of them already sold when they went to the butcher, you were
Yeah, well, and
you were
you're
really
like,
hurting.
where do we put them when they come back?
Right, cold
Yeah.
storage.
Yeah, cold storage is really an issue. That's part of how I've been able to even it out, is increasing our cold storage.
Okay.
But then part of it is, without telling you every single piece of it, you know, our bigger steers are gonna finish at the end, you know, August, September, October.
Mm-hmm.
Then any first calf heifers that don't breed,
Yeah.
they're gonna go on into October, November, December.
Mhm.
This is the first year that I purposely did not finish any in January and February, and I'm very thankful because it was just so miserable.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have just been pouring that feed down the drain.
Yeah.
And so now we're kind of re-gearing up, and I've got 27 that are on feed now. But they're all different sizes, so,
Yeah.
you know, we run in a common allotment. That's part of why I couldn't do a Wagyu. That's part of why I couldn't do a purebred. If you're by yourself and you have a purebred herd, by all means, go to your breed association, get every resource they have, and drive that home. Do not reinvent the wheel. They already have a ton of information for you. Plug it in. You know, so how do you sell a mutt, right?
Yeah.
They're cute. That's the biggest thing that we have going for us is like, we always have pictures of the mountains and pictures of the cows coming in to feed out in the green grass, because that's what we have to work with.
Yeah.
And so, you know, now we're using, and that's the other flavor that we're working on is some of these 3 and 4 year olds that they had a calf the first year, did a great job, ran off and hid from the bull and didn't get bred back 2 years in a row. They're already big. They hid out somewhere and they're already fat and beautiful, and we can put 45 days of feed in them. They have our flavor. They're a stronger flavor. They're already big. So finding those little pieces that you can use all along the way, it's been a very sharp learning curve. But yes, that is an issue.
Timing.
Yeah, I mean, and so, you know, you've always got that one calf that was way late. For us, we're trying to put together semi-loads to go to the sale.
Yeah.
So it is literally a filter for our other business that I can take all of these misfits off.
Yeah.
Any frozen ears and tails, they come right back.
Yeah.
Any of those heifers that didn't breed back that second time, they come back. So finding all of those little pieces, and it's not that we have 60 to 80 frozen eared and tailed and turned up toes and all of that. You know, we had maybe 20. This year we might have 40.
Yeah.
But then using some of those other pieces along the way, you can definitely find markets.
So then do you just get a whole pile of kill dates and hope for the
Yep.
best, basically?
So yeah, it really is that and that's how we've been able to scale this whole time, is that we were constantly picking up more dates.
Okay.
And so I have a standing 4 to 6 every month at a processor, and then I also am on their short call list, and if somebody cancels, can you fill 2, and can you take 3?
Yeah.
So we do have that little bit of a dance there.
Yeah, because that's been our thing is like, we come out of the hills, we got 6 open cows, and we're like, or dry cows, and we're like, cool, they're perfect. They're
Yep.
burger cows ready to go,
Yep.
but we can't get a date.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, you know, we got 5 or 6 dates one year, and we were like, cool, we'll have some open heifers, this will work. We had like 2 open heifers,
Yep.
we're like, that's a great problem, but it's really not when you're trying to do
Right,
this.
right,
So,
right.
Yeah, and I am to the point now where we ended up putting about 4 little, they're anywhere between 5 and 17 acre little traps around the place. And a couple were too subby to hay, a couple were too rocky to hay, and so it worked. They were stuff that wasn't getting grazed until later in the year when the cows came back, and it was already pretty tall and rank. It's really good feed now because we've gone through and we've cleaned that up, and so that ground is way more productive. So yeah, but we only ever have about 20 on feed year
okay,
round.
okay, yeah.
And then I just take the top 4 off of that, and then I kind of plan now towards fall. That's when most of my whole and half customers are.
Okay.
I do have a little bit of a glut there,
Yeah.
but I know, 15 halves are sold and 10
Yeah.
wholes. I can accommodate those, and I have them and they're good about, hey, can I bump you up to October? Can I take you back to November? and we kind of scatter it out that way. And then having the extra cold storage, so that the
Yeah.
1 month that I do have 3 and only 2 are sold, and then the next month I need 3, but I only have 2, yeah, it starts to sit
You
down.
had a question in the back?
You talked about using the wine model, so do you do tasting events with having
Yep.
the different brand?
Absolutely. We have one coming up at Brown Sugar next Friday,
Oh, cool.
I think. And I'll do carne cruda there. It's tableside service. We get to go and sit and visit. It's a New York strip steak it's kind of a tartare minus the egg. We sit and visit with people. That's kind of my,
But you do it where you're like tasting all the different, like.
so we haven't
That's
had
versus-
one yet with all 5 flavors.
Okay.
That's just recently come in, but we have in the past served at restaurants where we would do 2 or 3 different ones at a time. We haven't yet pulled off the 5. It's a big project.
Yeah.
It's really a pain, but,
Yeah, it's a little different than opening a bottle of wine and.
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that goes back to the planning, but we do, and we also host a beef tasting here at CWC this year will be August 26th. Get 10 ranches from around Wyoming. They all put in the same cut of meat. We cook every one of them the same. And you as a VIP ticket holder get to taste a 1 ounce serving from each of the 10 different ranches and vote on who is the best beef in Wyoming.
And then you have the nation, right?
Yeah,
Two
so
different
this
categories.
year we opened it, 2 years ago, we had so many producers from out of the state contact us and say, we can't get anything like this going in our area. Can we join in? So we started an open division, and it has been won by Colorado every single year. So different operations, but both of them were based in Colorado.
Which is comical because their state tries to ban all beef, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and this year we have beef from as far away as New Jersey and New York, California, Texas, North Dakota, South Dakota, New Mexico, Texas, yeah. So we're literally getting the entire country.
And they win honors. I mean, they win a belt buckle. They
Yeah,
get to go home
it's
for
fun.
bragging rights. They get to do,
It's
whatever advertising they want with it. It's pretty cool.
The
That
girl-
would splash social media.
Right?
Yeah, the lady that won from Wyoming this year, Flying E and Gray Bull, she's done a great job. That was always my dream, is that somebody would get $1 million worth of advertising out of saying they were legitimately voted the best beef in the West, the best beef in Wyoming. And so it's definitely becoming a thing.
She made t-shirts and everything
Oh yeah,
out of it. I mean,
yeah,
she's
she's
totally.
banner,
Oh, yeah,
she's
Nicole
knocking
goes
it
all
out.
out.
Yeah, I
Nicole
love
is
it.
awesome.
I love it. I mean, why would you not? Why would you not market
Right.
it that way? I mean, you earned the title. A lot of these things we talked about, understanding the yield of the carcass, understanding what local means. And is it special that no one else can cook it? Are you better off getting advertising out of it and it's seasonal? Do you want to talk about some of the cuts that you?
So, yeah, understanding the yield in the carcass, if you're gonna try and promote a particular cut, if there's only 2 of them, like an oyster shell, it comes like from way up in the hip.
Yeah, the round.
And so there's only 2 of them. It's an awesome cut of meat, but you're not gonna promote a whole business on 2. You gotta get rid of the rest of it. Brisket's the same. The understand your local part is I love short ribs. It's really hard to sell short ribs in Riverton, Wyoming, because short ribs in Riverton, Wyoming are in the crock pot with a bottle of barbecue sauce. You go to California or Phoenix or somewhere else, they're this very elaborate, and trust me, I have tried to cut them up every single way I can find. I've left them whole, I've left them long, I've left them short, I did Korean. I have done everything you can on spare ribs, or short ribs in Riverton, Wyoming, and they're hard to sell. And that kind of goes into are you better off getting the advertisement out of it? So I just wait until I have about 4 to 6 boxes couple 100 pounds of short ribs, and I take them down to the local store, and I get my name promoted a ton by making them $4. And then all of a sudden, everyone in Riverton, Wyoming loves short ribs, right? At $6, it's a ghost town. For me to try and take and get them to a market where they would be, in California, somebody was telling me they were $12 a pound the other day. For me to try and get them to California to capitalize on the $12, and that's where the big food system really capitalizes on that. They can ship an entire semi-load every day of short ribs to California, and it costs some pennies. It costs me a couple $100. I've eaten up all of the profit to get it to a market where it's gonna be the most valuable. So I revert back to, I'm getting the advertising out of it. I go on social media, I tag everyone that I can tag in it, and they're $4. I probably got $3 worth of advertising out of it, because now everybody is gonna go in, and when they get into my freezer to get my $4 short ribs that I am just breaking even on, they're gonna get an $18 ribeye as well. So I try and kind of double dip there. I wouldn't go into, if you have some amazing flank steak, grandma's Spanish flank steak recipe, whatever it is, I wouldn't rely on that either, because you'll be able to sell it once. Everybody will get excited, but even if you have free samples out, and it's amazing, like everyone loves it, and you cook it just as good or better than grandma, you'll sell that cut once. But when they go home and it's not life-changing for them, and it's not a new family heirloom recipe for them, they no longer need that kind of meat. And so you're kind of better off just leaving those kind of cuts, in my mind, leaving those kind of cuts alone and letting them kind of work on that themselves. If you have a decent recipe and it comes in the newsletter and it comes in the box, and they try it and there's no claims that it's the world's greatest, it's okay, it's good. But I wouldn't market that like, we're gonna really take you to the next level as a chef over one cut. And that kind of and then the seasonal part of it is, I think ribeye right now, bone-in ribeye at retail is like $16, $17 for me right now. Bone-in prime rib is $18 or $19, but you can only sell it during Christmas. I ended up with 2 additional prime ribs this year because this is the most prime ribs I've ever done. I think I did over 40, but I had to start saving them in September, August. I had to start saving them. And so, some of those, leg of lamb, is the same thing. You got 2 times a year where you can sell a full leg of lamb. The rest of the year, it's very hard. I had some that wasn't cut really great. They didn't follow my instructions, but we ended up being able to use it as a leg of lamb roast. And it's sold moderately throughout the year, but things like that where, there's already a season for those things. Thanksgiving, you sell just a handful of prime ribs. Christmas, can't hardly get your hands on enough of them. So those kind of things, just watch out, and the brisket's another one. That's why I don't sell it retail. I sell all of my briskets wholesale to James Bunker at Bunk's Barbecue. Even if someone calls in special orders, I just hesitate to sell brisket, because if someone goes home and doesn't cook it well, it's my bad brisket, not their lack of cooking. James does an amazing job of cooking. It makes me look good. He does an amazing job of putting us out there on social media, makes us look good. So for the $3-4 per pound that I lose by selling it to James, everybody that walked through the door last night heard my name.
We only have a couple more minutes left, but I said, one question too, I've seen direct marketers, say like, market by cooking method, like everybody has a pellet smoker now.
Yeah.
This is a good batch or package of beef for the smoker, this is for the slow cooker, this is for the
Yeah.
grill. You ever done that?
I think leaving it like vague like
Yeah.
that is, not that it's this one, these Korean short ribs are gonna change your life. Short ribs on the smoker, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that approach is probably far more advantageous than a specific use.
And then my follow-up question too is just, I don't know what the packet or what the labeling rules are, but like, I think it'd be cool if there was like a QR code that you could, see your story, see the McCann family, and then also see, like, this is how you prepare this package of short ribs.
Yeah, so there is, you look at the Pacific Rim, Japan, they have QR codes on their eggs, they have QR codes on their rice, everything. Their beef, Korea is another good one for their very high-end beef program. They have like 157 standard cuts, which I can't believe. I mean, we've dumbed it down to like 18 or 20, I think. But yeah, there is, you have to go through a label compliance company, and they will help you navigate the ins and outs of what is and what isn't a claim, but the QR codes, Pothook, Ryan, they're doing it. It's a beautiful package, bam, right to the website. It is interesting, and you'd have to be a little more tech savvy than me or have someone help you set it up. It would probably be pretty labor intensive to start, but definitely worth looking into.
Bus.
How do you deal with customers and halves and quarters? Do you choose the cut list, or do you let them choose their cut list, and how do you explain it to them?
So holes and halves, I walked them through it, and that is where I have won more customers than anyone. It's a 20 to 30 minute phone call. I talk to them about how they cook. I talk to them about their family size, how many people are feeding, all of those things, and I can say, hey, it doesn't sound like, you're not gonna use a ton of roast, let's only get you the chuck or the rump. I get more customers that come right back every year because I held their hand through that.
Yeah.
Holes and halves only. On a quarter, I just take it out of my retail. I've taken an average over the last couple of years, and I've narrowed down a list. They get, I think it's like 40-50 pounds of ground, but I just take those cuts out of my retail because it's too difficult to try and find that many customers to split up a beef.
Yeah.
We did do a fun thing called a cow pool. We got 10 people, they all put in a deposit, and when I had all 10 people, I went ahead and got the beef butchered. We showed up at a deal like this, everybody got a box, you get 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and that's how we divided up the beef. And we got down to those little cuts that were 2 and 3 per head. We assigned a retail value to them. There's one ribeye left, it's $18. There's one tenderloin, it's $20 a pound. And we kind of divvied it up that way. So the one guy loved brisket, he wanted the brisket, didn't care about the tenderloin.
We gotta cut it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can we move this, like, if
Yeah.
anybody wants to
Yeah.
see it, we can put it out.
Yeah,
do
we
it
can
out.
put out in the
Anyway,
hallway.
Yeah.